The story behind Henry Cavill gets more insane every day. What started as one man's ego trip has now descended into a hit piece that reads like the deranged fantasy of a fluorescent-haired Tumblr addict. Video game bro language is not how you talk to co-workers. And he wouldn't stop! Oh please, don't say Monka S and Pog anymore, I can't handle it! One thing I could see getting to people in Hollywood is when the fans actually like somebody. Because if the fans like that person, and they don't like everybody else, means the problem is you. But despite the hit pieces and the roles he may have lost over the last few days, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Let's just hope it's not an oncoming train. But for the full story, you have to go back a bit. You had Henry Cavill resigning as The Witcher. He's not coming back for the next series. Now, this isn't too much of a surprise when you've actually seen the series and know it breaks canon. Find out that he was on the set actually policing the canon and trying to correct it as much as possible. And, of course, that the writers actively mocked the source materials on The Witcher because they don't think it's very good. It's just a game. Who cares about things like that? No, these writers are so egotistical and arrogant that they think that movies and television series are somehow ranked higher in the entertainment industry than just one of those games. That's something that little children play, whereas us on a television series, we're creating art. And that egotistical, self-centered, entitled attitude definitely plays a part later down the story. But it was good news at the time for fans of Henry Cavill and fans of Superman alike when he came out and said that he was actually going to come back and play Superman in DC. Everyone wanted this. He was born to play Superman. He fits the role perfectly. There was no downside here. The fans had been asking for this for years, which is why it was such a surprise when James Gunn came out and said I have a DC slate ready to go. Among those on the slate is Superman. It's in the initial stages, but we'll be focusing on the earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. It's incredible to see someone just announce a new project, set it up, and then immediately torpedo it and sink the entire project into the ground in 2 tweets. How to make people lose interest in your movie 101. Because he's even gone so far as to remove the cameos that were going to appear in The Flash, which was specially filmed, and Cavill got paid $250,000 each for. I mean, for James Gunn, that is one expensive ego trip. This is a person that took over, and rather than just continuing something, or maybe morphing it over time into something else, just even if you wanted to start something new but you kept the actors and just made them play slightly different people, you could have continued it and made everyone happy. But instead, we've got to burn everything that came before because James Gunn is so obsessed with putting his stamp on it that only his opinion matters. The last thing James Gunn cares about is the opinion of the fans. He either hates money, hates the fans, or just loves himself that much. And I'm not saying he can't make good movies, they're just not the movies that the fans want. And when you're in these kind of creative industries, your opinion is entirely irrelevant. What you want, what you desire to do, is irrelevant. Nobody cares about you. Your job is to provide the fans what they want, to please them. But not in James Gunn's case, no. James cares a lot more about his vision and his opinion. Everyone else, they can sod off. Who do you think you are, the people with money? No, no. And he wanted to show everyone just how little he cared about their opinion, to the point where he'll even just blatantly lie when asked questions. Please tell me this isn't an origin movie. No way. Except not only did he say it's going to focus on the earlier part of Superman's life, the script will focus on him as a cub reporter, where he will meet Lois Lane. He's young, he's just started reporting, and he's meeting the main characters for the first time. How is this not an origin story unless you classify Superman's origin as literally coming from outer space as a baby? Oh, I'm not lying to you, I'm just disingenuously misinterpreting what you mean, and what everyone means, when they talk about Superman's origin story. Gotta be honest, after Spider-Man, I never want to see another origin story again from anyone. But if I have to sit through it once, then once is more than enough for a lifetime, and keep going back to when nobody can actually do anything, and I'm just learning my powers, is the most ridiculous, obvious, and boring thing you can do in a movie. So congratulations, James Gunn, off to a great start. But the worst parts for his tweet for me is how he tried to spin his interaction with Henry Cavill, because to hear James Gunn talk about it, it was almost mutual. Oh, we had a great meeting with Henry, huge fans, talked about a load of exciting projects of working together in the future. He doesn't mind because we're going to give him other roles. We've kind of both agreed that Superman should go in this way, except that's not what Henry Cavill says. I've had a meeting with them and it's sad news. I will not be returning as Superman. The studio told me to announce my return in October prior to the hire But this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. I respect that they have a universe to build and wish them all the best. And for those that have been by my side, we can mourn for a bit. Entering a period of mourning isn't exactly what you'd say if both sides entered into the agreement together. And when they were already telling him to officially announce his return, that's the weirdest part to me. It made it look like he jumped from The Witcher to go to Superman. He'd got a new job, and so he could leave a job which he was probably unhappy in the time because of how they were treating the source material. And you would have thought that to leave a job that you were getting paid $1 million per episode for, you would have definitely had a contract in place that goes, okay, you're going to get these movies, or you're going to get this massive paycheck. But according to the Hollywood Reporter's sources, he did not have a deal in place as Superman, only a verbal agreement that the studio would develop future projects. The incredible disdain and disrespect involved in going back on that agreement is pretty incredible. Although also expected within Hollywood. And well, I would have said that you definitely should have had a contract in place because you know the kind of people you're working for. It does indeed show the kind of person that James Gunn is. I don't care about the movies he's made or what he said or whether he makes the right signals, the right interviews at the right time. I only care about his actions. And his actions were this. Now The Guardian came out and said that Henry Cavill won't return to The Witcher despite losing Superman. Congratulations on the most obvious and redundant newspaper article in all of history, considering he'd already been recast by this point. But then again, it is The Guardian. That's the kind of top quality reporting I expect from the people over there. The quality of that reporting is on par with this one, where, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Henry Cavill was a pawn in Dwayne Johnson's failed attempt to control a piece of DC. Trying to spin an actor wanting a part in a movie as an attempt to control a piece of DC really is the most extreme, over-the-top language I could have come up with in that situation. It even sparks stories about how The Rock has apparently unfollowed Warner Brothers and Black Adam on Instagram, only for it to turn out that, oh, actually, he never followed them. The guy who originally reported it in the first place to go, "We're good, bro. Tell your mum I said hi." But there's never enough insanity in Hollywood. You're surrounded by complete lunatics who are all on an ego trip and desperately trying to climb the slippery pole to crush everyone else underneath them. And so that just means that if something comes out and it makes them look bad, then we're going to try our best to cut you down at the knees. Now, this entire post is deluded and insane, but not because I think it's entirely made up. But the kind of way they phrase it is where you can tell that someone's spinning you a story, but it's just so extreme, so extravagant. You can kind of see the actual events that happened when you cut away at the bigotry and disgusting filth that is just an inherent part of someone that speaks like this. For instance, at the beginning of the show, Henry was really good to work with. It's because he was going along with what they want. He was new, and that meant he did as he was told. Do what we want, good. Do anything against us, incredibly awful, and it's all your fault. But in season 2 and 3, something shifted. He became really impossible for women to work with, which is always a big problem. I mean, I don't know. If that's always a big problem, I'd just hire more men, because they apparently don't have that problem. You can already see the bias and the angle we're going for here. We're going to try and spin this in the only pressure point we have, when really what it comes down to is, if they're always a big problem, then the problem is them. But what's worse is because the showrunner is the same. He would try and overrule her, get changes made at last minute. Writers and directors were ignored on the set. Department heads were complaining because they were all so annoyed that the crap that they had written, after mocking the source material, after destroying what The Witcher was, they were so annoyed that someone was actually trying to give a good show that the fans wanted. The problem here isn't what they were, it was the terrible, terrible work that they were creating. What's my source, Your Honor? Well, you can go and watch the show, but then it gets worse, because he started making comments that we didn't like. It was disrespectful. I don't care if someone's disrespectful to you, love. You know what respect is? It's earned, and you're not actually deserving of respect until you've earned that respect. If someone says something and you find it disrespectful, deal with it. You're an adult. You're working on a production. In a career, it doesn't matter whether you get on with people. You stay professional. And that's all that matters. But no, don't you understand? It got so horrible because he played video games. He was an addict. No. It's very easy to play games and have them disrupt other parts of your life, but it's just because you want to play the games more than you want to do the other stuff. But a lot of people think that's where the misogyny came from. The gamer world. Video game bro language is not how you talk to co-workers. I mean, you can really see just the barefaced mask-off man-hating that goes on in this line. I mean, when it comes to misogyny, Descartes had I think, therefore I am, and they had he's a man, therefore he must be. I'm still not sure what video game bro language is, unless you mean Twitch emotes. But he just wouldn't stop. Why can't he speak to us in the language we understand, which includes everybody, even the things which contradict the other things? Why won't this big, massive, muscly, stacked dude talk to us like he's got a gender studies degree? I just don't understand! His disrespect escalated. He would rewrite entire scenes from our script, which I'm sure were a vast improvement from whatever you vomited onto the page, and decided he didn't want to do any romantic scenes at all. No kissing, not even shirtless! Is that why you're so mad? Are you just really upset that the incredibly attractive man wanted nothing to do to you and wouldn't get his kit off? Because what this sounds like is just someone on the team that was jilted by him, who saw their chance and thought, yes, now I can get it off. And you were so gagging, so desperate, so thirsty to get him with his kit off on the set that when he refused, it drove you insane. You want to talk about indecent behavior? How about this? He did horrible things, such as make friends with a writer who was also a gamer. Oh, the horror! A man had friends he's not kept in a room on his own, completely separated from everybody. What happens if they talk and communicate and organize? This is a disgrace. First friends, next they'll want to lead things. First they make friends, then they stand up to us. This is horrible, we can't allow this to stand. How are we going to dominate them if they're not kept alone in a room on their own? But don't worry, we handled it behind the scenes, because we made enough complaints to HR about them that we got his friend fired. That ought to make Henry easy to control now we've sent up the bat signal that if you make friends with him, we'll get you fired. What this person doesn't realize is just how mask-off obvious their own behavior is from what they're saying. But after that writer left, Henry still had some self-respect. He didn't just crumble like we thought he would. Eventually, Netflix got tired of our baseless accusations and got bored of investigating him. Here's a little tip. If you have to repeatedly investigate someone, it's because the previous investigations didn't find anything. If the investigation found something, there wouldn't be any need for the later ones, would there? I'm so sorry that you tried to destroy a man's career because he wouldn't get his kit off for you. But he was just actually so innocent that none of the investigations found anything. But because Netflix has hired so many lunatics on their staff that they will just keep on complaining about someone until they just be like, oh, will you just shut up? That Netflix reached out to Henry Cavill personally and decided to give him a final warning. Having received that warning, Henry Cavill basically told them where they could shove it, is what I read at the end of the... It's an incredible feat to write a message that biased and over-the-top exaggerated and still make yourself sound like you're the problem. Now, we can't know the reliability of that source, whether it was just a fever dream by a deranged lunatic, or whether it's from a writer on The Witcher who wrote it as a fever dream because they're a deranged lunatic. But it could all be for the best, not just because the people we're working for were nutters, but Henry Cavill now becomes an executive producer on a Warhammer 40,000 series project for Amazon. And obviously Amazon's a bit hit and miss. We had Rings of Power from them. We got the Wheel of Time. But on the other hand, we had Reacher and the Terminal List. Their projects definitely go one way or the other, and it just seems to be who's in charge of them. And with this, with Henry Cavill in charge, someone that actively respects the source material, then it's off to as good a start as we can probably expect in today's day and age. Because this is a guy who's into Warhammer, he even paints his own minis, and has been into it for a long time before this project was even a twinkle in someone's eye. And he made all the right noises in his announcement, talking about the freedom to be true to the massive scope. Speaking directly to the fans, I promise to respect this IP that we love. Not even that you love, that we love combined. And one thing that we see from Hollywood is they love to appropriate something, but very rarely do they actually have any proof of it. Oh, sure, they'll talk about how they love a series. I've read the Wheel of Time books. I know all of them back to back. I've loved this since I was a kid. And that's why I'm changing all of it, because I love it so much and think it needs to be fixed. They either don't understand what actually liking a franchise is, or they just have a very sick and twisted idea of what love is in the first place. Or row number 3, they're just lying. They're pretty good at that too, to be honest. It is basically their job. But Henry Cavill promises to bring you something familiar, to endeavor to bring you something fantastic that is as of yet unseen. Something familiar, something you recognize, something that will be intrinsically 40k, that will be inseparable from the universe itself, because I haven't changed it. I think most people like Henry Cavill and thought he was a great Superman. But given the state that those companies are in, and given the quality that we've been getting out of them, especially if that whole Witcher scenario was actually written by someone within the company, you're just better off out of them. And at this point for me, I'd be very happy to see something in the 40k universe. You could really get an incredible show out of it. So for me, it only really comes down to one thing, and that is how much power does Henry Cavill have on the production? Does he have a veto, or is he just along for the ride? Someone where they'll use his name, but when it comes to the decisions, when it comes to the hard choices of a writer wants to do this, which will be against the IP itself, is there someone that can stand there and say, no, get lost? Because I think that's how you end up with good entertainment. Someone who not only appreciates the fans and the IP, but someone who's not scared to tell a writer that their ideas is awful. And if they don't like it, if they can't contribute to the lore rather than trying to change it, then they need to leave. But somebody needs that power, because otherwise, I think the writers' egos definitely get in the way, and they begin to think that they are bigger than the IP itself. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.